Every sales skill that you have as a salesperson has evolved. You've gotten better at asking questions. You've gotten better at the process, connecting with people, handling objections. But there's a program underneath the surface that hasn't been updated since you were a kid. And that's the thing that's hopping on these calls and derailing them for you, causing all the resistance. Now, you may or may not be old enough to remember what the internet was like back in the 90s. I remember as a really young kid getting access to my first computer and the internet. Back then we had to physically plug in a phone line and then dial up to the internet. Most of you probably don't even know what the term dial up means. But it would take a while to even connect to the internet. And then once we were on there, forget about downloading a lot of stuff. I used to get into downloading music, and one song that today you don't even have to download, it's just streaming at our fingertips immediately, would take hours back then to download sometimes. It was awesome at the time, but looking back on it now, as technology has evolved, super slow, and would be extremely frustrating for us to go back and try to use that operating system. So as you can imagine, running 2026 programs on that Windows 98 operating system, it's not going to work. Your Zoom's not going to work. Netflix isn't going to work. Spotify is not going to work. That's why it's so important to update the underlying operating system, so that way everything runs smooth and that you can be as efficient as you possibly can. Now, that's exactly what's happening today on these sales calls. We add all these software programs and apps to our arsenal by spending thousands of dollars on sales training and programs and coaching. We learn all the best questions. We learn all the best ways to handle objections and to close. But without updating the underlying system, none of those things are going to work very efficiently. And then we're just going to fall into this spiral of getting more and more frustrated around, well, I did all the work, spent all the money, spent all this time learning things. Why isn't it working like it should? You know what it feels like to be in flow on a call, where everything's going smooth, you're handling their questions, you're able to connect really well, and then something happens. Some kind of resistance pops up, something forces some kind of disconnection between you, the person in front of you, and sometimes you're aware of it, sometimes you're not. That's the outdated operating system showing up. Now, there's really two sides to every sales call, and I'm not talking about your side and their side. I'm talking about structure and flow. The sales training that you do, the scripts that you have, the questions that you memorize, all of that is structure. The second part to that, which is what most people miss, is the flow. And that's the ability to stay calm and present and connected, so that way you can respond to whatever the situation brings instead of just reacting from your programming. That's the part that this outdated operating system does not let you reach. It doesn't let you get into that flow, and then you're just stuck relying on one part of the conversation, which is the structure. It's not a good long-term strategy, and this is ultimately what sets apart the best sales reps in the industry, the people who make consistent, really great money, from the people who know what they're doing, they've done all the training and have it intellectually, but aren't able to make consistent income and end up frustrated, burnt out, and potentially even leaving the industry. This is the shadow rep, right? This is the program that was wired into us at a young age, and it was built for programs back then, and it was really helpful. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is, it's not 1998 anymore. It's 2026, and that system has not been updated, even though the software and the apps have been updated. So the goal here is to bring both of these sides of the conversation and integrate them together. That way, when you're showing up on calls, you have the structure, you know the process, you know where you want to take the customer, and you're able to go deep with them because of that. But you also have the calm, confident presence, the other side of it that is just as important, if not more. The only way to do that is to look at these patterns as they show up during the day, during the call, even outside of work. Once we can start to be aware of these things, start to catch them in the moment, the more awareness that we build, then we can start to work with them and rewire them. Now, the worst thing you could do in this moment is just to repress and ignore them. It's very easy to get in a situation where we feel the resistance come up and we just shove it back down and just try to push through. And that's a good short-term solution, maybe. It might get us a deal or two here and there. But long-term, that program is just going to get louder and louder, and it's going to come back harder and harder and be harder to deal with. It's going to lead to massive amounts of burnout, lost energy, lost income, frustration, anger, all of it. So my goal here is to help you expose the shadow rep and to rewire things so that way you can show up calm, confident, grounded, and with the ability to actually connect and make the income that you really should be making. I built a free tool to help you get started. There's a link below. Click on that. It'll take you just a couple minutes and you can uncover some of these patterns that are showing up day to day. Because once you have the awareness, then we can start to actually work with them. Let me know in the comments what you think.